As we turn to District 1, our first in 60, 70 years, I think, since there have been district elections in Seattle. We will have our first West Seattle District council member starting next year. So for those who haven't paid attention, we are up to 11 declared candidates in this race. We had responses and confirmations from 10 of them, although I noticed that one is not here in the room. The 11th candidate, Dave Montour, expressed his regrets that he could not be here. He had a previously planned family vacation. So first, let's give a round of applause to the 9 that are here. And then I'm going to invite Pete Spalding up to read a brief statement from Dave to share with everyone. He asked us to express his regrets.
Okay. Dave wanted us to say thank you to Views and the West Seattle Senior Center for hosting this candidate forum. I greatly appreciate the efforts of Views organizers and the West Seattle Senior Center to inform and engage the public on issues that affect West Seattle. Although I am unable to attend today's event, I look forward to future opportunities like this and contributing to the important community dialogue with fellow candidates and constituents of District 1. If you have questions or concerns about the state of our city and neighborhoods, or would like to learn more about my ideas before the next forum, please contact me. And he has his contact information on the bottom of these sheets, and they are over here on the candidate information table. So if you want to get his contact information, I invite you to grab one of the sheets on your way out.
Thank you, Pete. All right, so we're finally about to get underway here with our District 1 candidates. Before that, I need to extend a couple of thank yous. Thank you to the 34th District Democrats who were here this morning welcoming folks and helping to get anyone registered who's not currently registered to vote. I want to make sure that as many people as possible get involved. And they're happy to share information on how to register people if you have friends and neighbors who need to get registered. The 34th District Democrats meet monthly at the Hall at Fauntleroy. That's the second Wednesday, correct? Second Wednesday of the month at the Hall at Fauntleroy. I'd also like to extend our thank you from Views to the West Seattle Senior Center, who co-sponsored today by opening up the facility. They're not normally open here on Saturday mornings, and offering us a few resources and amenities here to help carry this event off. So let's give them a round of applause. My name is Michael Taylor Judd. I'm currently a co-chair at the North Delridge Neighborhood Council. For those who are wondering, what is this Views that I've suddenly started hearing a lot about? Views stands for Visualizing Increased Engagement, West Seattle. It's an organization that a few of us neighborhood leaders here in West Seattle formed about 6 years ago when we held a large candidates forum up at the Brocky Center at South Seattle, at the time still community college. Some of you may have been there. And then we kind of, we're all neighborhood folks who got involved in various things and we didn't carry it off. And a couple of us are really looking to take this organization and get it really going and carrying on again. For those who've been in West Seattle a long time, you may remember Megawatt and some of the great community building efforts that organization did. And there's a few of us who really think that it's time for us to have an organization like that here in West Seattle again. So we're looking to have events like this that educate our community, that tell people how to get involved and engaged, and just reach out more. So hopefully you'll hear a lot more from us. We're trying to get a web presence and a Facebook presence going. So I thank you all for being here this morning. Thank you to those of you who made donations for breakfast. Views is an entirely volunteer-run organization. We're all your neighbors and friends. We're not getting paid. We're not currently a nonprofit with members. So any money that you offered this morning is helping us to keep this going, so we appreciate it. Finally, let's get underway with things here. We're going to be pushing as fast as possible. Believe me, we are as frustrated as some of you will be that we can't get more detailed answers, but with this number of candidates, we're really just trying to cover more topics rather than go in depth on only one or two. So we will alternate a little bit this morning. We'll start We'll have some questions for the candidates, and each candidate will get a chance to offer a 1-minute response. Once again, Joe is at the front here with the timer, and if you go over time, we will simply turn off your microphone. We will have a couple of lightning rounds just to keep things moving. For the lightning rounds, we will ask yes or no questions, and candidates will be asked to either lift a yes card, a no card, or the famous waffle card.
Your no is upside down.
No card, right side up. And a famous waffle card. For those who have not seen waffle cards, we acknowledge that sometimes, even as we try to make what we think is a simple yes or no answer, council candidates don't think is a simple yes or no answer. So we do give them the option to say, I'm waffling. If you do waffle, which I don't recommend, because when we're out here, we don't like waffles, and believe me, I sympathize with the candidates because I have sat where you are before. We will give you a 30-second opportunity to clarify your waffle response, but if you all start waffling and using up time, that is less time that you will have to answer the important questions that we have for the audience. And then time willing, we are going to do a round of candidating at the end, where we will ask candidates to go out to a couple of groups of chairs or tables, and you will have the opportunity to go up and have a few minutes to ask them a very quick question, and then we will rotate them around to the next group. So let's get underway. Our first question is an introductory question, and I'm just going to start at the far end there with Amanda. We are going to ask each of you with a 1-minute response. Give us your name, the neighborhood or corner of District 1 that you live in, and please tell us the most recent community organization that you volunteered with or community event that you helped plan, something like that that lets us know what are you doing here in West Seattle for all of us.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. My name is Amanda K. Helmick, and I live in Westwood, which is just on that southern edge of West Seattle. And I am the current co-chair of the Westwood Rocks Hill Arbor Heights Community Council. I'm also co-chair and co-founder of the West Seattle Transportation Coalition. Those are things I currently do. So our next meeting for the West Seattle Transportation Coalition is the 26th of March, where we will have SDOT on hand to talk about Vision Zero and Move Seattle and what that means for West Seattle. So thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Brianna Thomas, and I live in the junction here, Fauntleroy and Edmonds. I currently serve on the boards of Working Washington, the Washington Bus, the executive board of the 34th District Democrats, and the most recent bit of volunteerism I did was working with the Church Council of Greater Seattle on their philanthropy committee. That's a giving committee. I really enjoy my work at the Church Council. They've been around for over 100 years doing direct service in the community, serving folks that are most frequently neglected and overlooked and disenfranchised from being parts of our community. And so I really find that very gratifying to give back to. And I'm going to go ahead and start saving time right away.
Good morning, Brianna. We can share. Chaz Redmond, one of our fellow colleagues is listening. Chaz Redmond, I live in, I'm a Morgan Junction person, but I actually live in Gatewood, which is one of those old-timey neighborhoods, which appears on old-timey neighborhood maps. So I live up on top of a hill, which used to be field farms. So my neighborhood is the neighborhood that has short north and south streets and long east and west streets. My two most recent volunteer activities, one you'll hear about next week. I've been working with the Junction Association and other community groups and businesses here in Alaska Junction area to begin the process of creating a survey of what makes the West Seattle Junction special. We have some funding to do that, and more recently working on festivals for this year. I'm a festival producer for Alki Art Fair, Delridge, and Morgan, and I'm transitioning, so I found new producers for those.
Good morning, I'm George Capistani. I've been in West Seattle for a little over 10 years. My wife and I have 4 teenage sons, 3 goats, a dog, and a parrot. My most recent community activity was to provide a feeder for the people that walk up Jacobson and feed my goats. It's very, very popular, and people love that. Now, that might not be a community thing for people on this side, but on that side, people really care about it. I also have a child that has autism, so I do a lot of work with children with autism. It's a very close thing to me, and I continue that work constantly. I am very excited to be a person running in this race. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Lisa Herbel, and thank you all for coming out today. Breakfast and politics, two of my favorite things. I'm running for District 1 to represent West Seattle and South Park. I live in the Highland Park neighborhood where I've been for 15 years. My daughter and her family live in High Point, and I've been privileged to work as Councilmember Nick Licata's aide for the last 17 plus years, working to pass progressive legislation like the paid sick and safe leave ordinance that has granted workers in Seattle, 190,000 workers in Seattle who did not have paid sick safe leave, that benefit. Also programs like the rental housing inspection program for renters, and the precursor to the innovative LEAD program, which is a pre-arrest diversion program. These policies are being replicated all over the country now. My most recent work, Neighborhood House Board.
Hello, my name is Pavel Goberman. I'm originally from former USSR, Russia. Who does not know what is USSR was? I live in the United States 35 years. I lived in Seattle in 1982, worked here and moved and came back 1985. Moved out, did mistake, I did not know the system. Now came back, running for city council. It's so boring job, I don't like it, but I have to do it because I have to plan to create job, fight crime, and I'm in health fitness business. I'm 77 and half, good health, swim, butterfly strokes, pull up 6 times. Shortly, I want benefit Seattle, promote Seattle nationwide, show nation how create 1,000 jobs, balance budget, improve heavy traffic, fight crime, and so. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Philip Tavel. I've lived here in West Seattle for 17 years, currently in the Morgan Junction, mostly bouncing between 98116 and 136 during that time. Lived there with my wife and my 3-year-old son. In the community, actually, I did work with Rotary. Most recently, I'm actually working with the Morgan Junction Community Association on their summer festival, actually with Chaz as well. And I've been running a trivia night here in Seattle for the last 8 years. And like next week, we're doing a fundraiser for YMCA's children education programs. And I think it's important to be part of the community in that way and give back as much as possible. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shannon Braddock. I've lived in the Admiral neighborhood for the past 16 years with my 3 kids, all in Seattle Public Schools. I'm very rooted in the community. I currently serve on the West Side Baby Board. I've previously served on the West Seattle Food Bank Board and as a member of the Lafayette PTA Board as their legislative representative. My current day job is as Chief of Staff to Joe McDermott, who represents King County Council, District 8, which also encompasses this district. And I have had experiences at nearly all levels. We've had federal, state, and local government experience for many years. And I look forward to bringing that experience and my working relationships and my nonprofit relationships to work for all of you at District 1.
By way of introduction, to paraphrase the witnesses 65 years ago before the McCarthy boards, I am not now, nor have I ever been related to the Koch brothers in Wichita, Kansas. My name is Kosh. I'm a lifelong progressive Democrat, and I have no relation. It comes up every day, so I thought I'd get that off the table right away. My wife Katie and I are very involved in Arts West. Katie will be the president of the board later on this year. My most recent community activity was this past Saturday going around the North Admiral area, picking up garbage off the street. by about Thursday, the muscles in the backs of my legs decided that I had done enough. So, by the way, Marlboro cigarettes are the most popular in our community, in case you were wondering. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we've had a request from some folks in the back that when you guys give answers, you can stand up a little bit. So we'll have to figure out, maybe we can unhook the mics and see how we can manage that a little bit. All right, we're going to move into our first major topic, which is transportation. And our first key issue question. It's a two-parter. What is your primary source of transportation? So getting, sort of to work, to fun, whatever. And then what is the first West Seattle transportation issue you would work on if elected? And we'll start with Brianna and work our way across.
Thank you. I take the bus and walk. My primary source of transportation are these two very reliable feet. They get me most of the places I need to go, and the bus gets me back. And then the first thing I'd work on is increasing access to some of the bus routes across West Seattle. The 22, for instance, is a pet project of mine. I don't know if you know exactly where it is, but it's in the Morgan Junction. And it goes up that massive incline of a hill that lasts forever. And it only runs once an hour. And it stops running at 8:43. I know I've got an alarm on my phone to let me know that it's time to get on the bus if I don't feel like huffing it up that hill. Same thing for access to transit on Alki. It's one of the most beautiful parts of West Seattle, and you can't have a life if you live down there after 7 p.m. Most of you, I'm assuming since you're here on a Saturday morning, go to community meetings in the evening. And being able to get around West Seattle through public transportation is something that seems not only necessary, but entirely feasible.
We're working our way down the
We're
line.
working our way across, okay, sorry. So I have actually the same modes of transit as Brianna. I walk, I use the bus, and I do what I call mixed mode. As an example, when I'm going downtown, I drive to Beacon because it's an express trip up Columbian Way, then I park and then I walk downtown, then I take the 36 bus back. That saves my time and uses all forms of transportation. My priority would be to work with SDOT to come up with a plan to add an extra lane on the Spokane Viaduct off-ramp to 99. We need a dedicated bus lane, and the biggest choke point is getting off of the Spokane Bridge and onto the 99 viaduct. And it's possible. I've worked with SDOT. We need 4 feet of overhang. SDOT has the capability of engineering that. We know that they can do that. They've done it in other places. So my primary goal would be to get the junction to downtown travel time back to 15 minutes.
My primary mode of transportation, unfortunately, is a car, but I'm thinking of getting a hovercraft so I can avoid the West Seattle Bridge. My first action would be, what Brianna said, was to increase bus service. My son takes the bus to the center school, and if he misses the 37th at, I believe it's 7:30 or 7:45, he is out of luck and has to walk up the hill. He's very capable of walking up the hill, but he doesn't like to walk up the hill if he has to do that. So that would be a major point, is to increase bus service in the underutilized areas of West Seattle.
My primary mode of transportation is the 131 bus. I'm frustrated that it doesn't come more often, but it is a good source of transportation. My first priority would be making sure the Bridging the Gap renewal has more money for crosswalks, sidewalks, funding the pedestrian master plan, road repairs, funding the Lander Street overpass, and really importantly, getting the Fauntleroy Way Boulevard project beyond the 60% design funding that it's at right now.
I have business license 34 years, but in Oregon I ran for U.S. Senate against idiot Biden and Merkley. Then I ran for mayor of Beaverton. They retaliated me, confiscated my driver license, even I did not violate any traffic law. My any complaint ignored it, therefore now I moved in Washington, but Washington State denied me driver license. They said I have to pay fine in Oregon to clear up. It violation Constitution, violation my civil right. About here transit system, it is socialist system. They got money what they want to do. What I don't like, they rob senior citizen, increase rate now of transfer. A ticket costs 30% more now. Why didn't it other some 25 cents? So why didn't increase to only 10 cents or 15 cents? No, right away 25 cents more. It is not proper way. Thank you.
My primary mode of transportation is my car. I frequently have to work down in Kent at the Regional Justice Center, and that kind of dovetails with what I think needs to be changed, is we need more buses coming in and out of West Seattle, so it's not just downtown is one of the most accessible places, so that it's not 90 minutes to Fremont or impossible to get to other places as far away as Kent in any kind of reasonable time. Because for our bus system to work, you have to be able to get everywhere, not just to one or two popular locations, but anywhere around town. And at this point, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to. And especially with the fact that the tunnel doesn't look like it's going to get done anytime soon, and we don't know what's going to happen to the viaduct. Fixing those routes, there's enough buses going everywhere within Seattle and beyond. That's what we have to do.
My primary mode of transportation is both. Actually, I split it between car and bus. I tend to bus to work, but often with my kids I need to drive my car, and I also use my feet to walk around my neighborhood, which is fantastic. I also would certainly support the renewal and expansion of the Bridging the Gap levy. I do think that's very important. Very specifically, I would also continue to fight to make sure that the state is providing our viaduct mitigation dollars, meaning that they are giving us the dollars we need to put more transit on the viaduct while the construction project is being finished. And very specifically, as part of our community mobility contracts, there is a regional partnership fund there. I would like to find ways that the city can partner with Metro to really expand service on the 120 line. It's one of our most crowded lines, and I think it's very important that we do our best to try to have more service on that line.
I walk most of the time. When that's not possible, I do drive. Councilman Burgess said it was a good thing that we have transit being expanded in our community. I agree with him. Here's what a better thing would be. A better thing would be if the city of Seattle used the authority that it has to require development projects to pay their fair share. The amount of money we've left on the table for transportation is enormous. Just the other day, I was at the Route 35th Avenue meeting, and we talked about the funding for stoplights. They're about $250,000 each. Well, by my estimate, we've left at least $200 million on the table by not requiring developers to pay their fair share. Sammamish, for example, has a $14,000 per unit fee for development. Issaquah has similar fees as well. We are not doing what we can to get funding from all sources. We're constantly relying upon the existing populace, and I don't think it's fair. It needs to be changed.
Hi. So I multi-mode as well. I walk to the park or the grocery store with my son. I ride the bus to work 3 days a week, and I drive my car. So I do all of those things. Currently, we have something working with the city called the West Seattle Transportation Corridor. It's something that the West Seattle Transportation Coalition has worked with the city on for 18 months. And that will be coming online here from the mayor's office and SDOT in the next few months. That's going to be something that looks at the Spokane viaduct and how we are moving around. I'd like to push for a busway, an actual busway, instead of adding another lane onto 99 North, which will just go into a tunnel and bypass downtown. I would want to rather see us have some kind of busway that gets buses moving from our area downtown. I also believe that we need some kind of rapid transit to come here to West Seattle.
All right, get your lightning cards out, because this is the first round, the first of the lightning round, and I would like to remind the candidates, we have people in the back of the room, so make sure you hold the cards up so they can see them. And also, since there are 9 of you, continue to hold them up so everybody can see what your answer is. I mean, they're going to look at more than one person. So the first question, are the patrol boundaries for the Southwest Precinct too large? Okay, Shannon, 15 seconds, why?
Because I'm excited that we've got 2 more bike patrols that are hitting the southwest precinct, and I'm not certain how that might affect how much boundary they're able to cover.
Tom, 15 seconds, why
I would echo
Waffle?
Shannon's comments, the same things.
Okay. Second question, do you support the new homeless encampment ordinance?
Oh, jeez.
Okay, Amanda, 15 seconds, why are you
I-
waffling?
I don't support marginalizing homeless people to industrial areas.
Okay. Next question, have you ever testified at a city council meeting? Okay, thank you. Next question, do you support the city advocating for rent control in Olympia?
Rent control here or advocating in Olympia for rent control?
This is West Seattle, Chad. Okay, 15 seconds.
I want to explore a lot of other options for our housing affordability. I think rent control should be one of them, but not necessarily the first one we advocate for.
Okay, next question. Do you support the renewal of the Bridging the Gap levy?
Oh, boy. Okay.
I think we can get a round of applause for that one.
Do you think Seattle should develop its own broadband utility?
Waffle.
Lisa, 15 seconds.
I don't know if we can afford it.
Okay.
All of our other priorities.
So just as a warning, everyone's mic is live right now, so they will hear you. And if you don't behave, I will be going back to the mic. All right, so my name is Dorset Plants. Happy 3.1415 day, everyone. So the first, we're moving back into the questions. So the first question, the area that the topic that we are covering is quality of life. And this is another 2-part question. The first half of the question is, what do you think is the most common crime in District 1? And then the second part is, what would be your first public safety issue that you would confront or work on if you were elected to City Council? And we'll start with Chaz, and we'll make our way down again.
Okay, so as I understand it, the most pressing issue is either car or house thefts and UPS package thefts, those kinds of things. The first thing I would do would be work with SPD to beef up our community watch and neighborhood watch program and get more block watches in operation. We've got a really good, effective program now. I live in a neighborhood where we actually literally all look out for each other. We've got daytime, nighttime, third shift people, and it's that kind of eyes on the street that help. And SPD, I think, is very good at working with community policing, so I would like to beef up the block watch program and basically have the entire West Seattle South Park area completely covered with block watch.
Thank you. And it is a 1-minute time frame for answering this question. George.
I would ditto. I mean, it's probably home invasion, breaking and entering. I agree with Chaz that we have to increase community involvement and also bring forth a kind of spirit. There's a lot of retired people, at least in my area of West Seattle, which is the Rockaway west side of West Seattle, who are pretty diligent as it is right now, and we watch out for ourselves in my neighborhood. My goats, of course, make a lot of noise if they don't recognize somebody that comes around. I could advocate that everybody get goats, but I don't think that'd go very well. But I think it's community involvement. I think it's block watches, it's assistance from the police to help organize those things along with the city councilman. It'd certainly be one of the things that I would move forward on and make it a policy that is moving forward.
I believe that the issue of car theft and house thefts are the major crime issue faced right now in District 1. The first thing I would work on as relates to public safety is the restoration of the very popular community service officer program. that the City of Seattle SPD had before the recession that was eliminated in around 2006. It's a very popular program. It frees up police resources to do police work because the CSOs are non-uniform officers that work on a lot of issues that are both sort of proactive policing, reducing crime, as well as disputes between landlords and tenants and other civil neighborhood disputes.
Crime it very concerned me. In recently was article newspaper in Magnolia, crime increased 800%. Some people kill it, some burglary, car, breaking car. Why? Because no punishment. Here, prison are for entertainment, amusement, but not for punishment. Prison must be profitable because they must pay back to society for crime. They committed, pay back. This is more punishment, then will reduce crime.
Well, it's simple. The biggest problems right now we're facing in general are property crimes. Those are vehicle prowls and simple thefts. But the truth is the most disturbing thing are the rises in robberies, crimes where people are coming up to other people and taking things from them at knife point, at gunpoint, and just at threat. It is a simple thing in terms of how we solve it, and that's getting more police out there, walking beats on their feet, on bicycles, in their cars, patrolling, looking to actually protect and serve. And we need to support them. We need to get the money to the police to get them out there. And we need to increase their involvement with the communities in the block watch. But in the end, it's the police. When you have more police walking the beat and bicycling the beat, you will have less crime. Because if they're there, then people can't steal things. They can't break into the cars. And we can catch the people who are doing it and make sure that the recidivism rate is as low as possible. So I would make sure that the police were out there working with us, the citizens, not breaking the law and stopping these property crimes, and especially right now, working on the robberies where people are actually getting in the face of criminals and being threatened.
Yes, I understand property crimes are our #1 crime in our West Seattle South Park area, and I certainly support getting more police officers out of their cars, onto the streets, walking the neighborhoods, biking the neighborhoods, and frankly, we do need more police officers to be able to do that. I also think it's really important that we do educate our communities. I think our communities play a very large role in public safety. When we have neighbors outside, barbecuing in their front yards, talking to each other, knowing what their neighborhood looks like, that makes all of us safer and all of us a part of a more interactive community that can, frankly, promote public safety and by ourselves in our communities with the help, of course, of our police officers.
Yes, property crimes are the #1 crime that we're facing out here, although I echo what my friend Phil had to say about violent crime, that it seems to be on the rise. The event at QFC and the bus stop the other day was horrific. Chief O'Toole was here just the other day, on Wednesday, at the Senior Center, and she spoke about changes in SPD. I applaud the mayor and the council for increasing the police budget. We're now on target to increase our police officers from 1,313 by another 100 in the next 4 years. And that's an important positive step. However, to be honest, folks, we have had a breakdown in trust between the community and the police that serve us. The vast majority of police out there do a fantastic job, but we're under a consent decree from the Department of Justice from 2012. As your council member, I will hold the chief and her subordinates responsible for being sure the problems of the past are in fact problems of the past.
Hi. So yeah, property theft is definitely #1. We've been working really closely with the SPD down in the Westwood, Roxville, Albert Heights neighborhood. I'm in constant contact with Captain Wilski. We email each other almost daily. He gives us updates on what's going on. So I'm very aware of what's going on in our neighborhoods. Tom touched on it. I think police reform is incredibly important. I think we have a hiring system where we're giving 10 points to military veterans right off the bat. And that is setting up a system where you have police officers that are looking at their people they're serving as, their enemy and not necessarily as their role as peace officers. And we need to get back to having protect and serve and having peace officers and not officers who immediately look at us as suspicious or doing something wrong.
So we've established that property crimes is the biggest problem with us. I think we're all clear in agreement on that. I think a couple of things I'd like to work on is better use of information and technology so that we can actually use statistics to understand where crimes are happening, when they're happening, to whom they're happening, and to create more accountability for the police officers that are serving our community so we can take a look at what the stops look like. Who are we stopping? When are we stopping? Why are we stopping them as we all move through our communities? I'd also like to take a real hard look at the depolicing of South Park because all crimes in West Seattle are crimes, and everyone who's impacted by them deserves justice and deserves to be heard and deserves a police officer to come to their door and validate the fact that they've just had a loss. And there's not one loss in West Seattle that is greater or less valuable than any other. So creating trust in South Park and creating a relationship where that mutual respect can be fostered would be something that's very important to me.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to switch now to everyone's favorite topic that they don't like to talk about, land use. Well, great. This is a question, it's one question, but it's probably going to take a lot more than a minute, so remember it's a minute. How do we protect the character and history of West Seattle while welcoming growth and new business while ensuring that our children will still be able to own a home and live here? And we'll start with George this time.
Okay, well, I think that, development is an important part of any community. We see a confluence of cranes all over the city, and I think it's one of those things that just comes with a modern city that has property owners that sell, that developers that come in. I think one of the things that's really important to keep in mind is that what works on Capitol Hill or in Queen Anne doesn't necessarily work here in West Seattle. I like development. I mean, I'm a fan of development, but I'm also love West Seattle and the character that it has and the kind of, you want to get that? I guess the charm of California. The small businesses are impacted in two ways. Obviously, more people coming in creates more revenue and more customers for them. But then also, it creates competition. It's a tough
Thank you.
thing. Oh,
Sorry.
that's right. He was right. It was more than a minute. Sorry about that.
Lisa.
Our growth goals have come with a promise, and it's a promise that's been unfulfilled. We are not doing enough to ensure that development addresses the impacts, and we're not doing enough to make sure that developers are paying their fair share to do so. Councilmember Rasmussen this year has put impact fees on the table so that we can join the other jurisdictions in the state looking at paying for those impacts. I'm also very, very supportive of linkage fees so that we can make sure that the development that occurs is accompanied with apartments that are affordable to a range of residents so that people do not have to live outside of the city that they work. And finally, I'm on record as having sent a letter to DPD opposing the director's rule that they issued on redefining minimum parking requirements for large developments.
First, I would like to know how much money Mayor Murray and City Council members receive from developer and landlord. Looks like they get a big money in their election campaign, therefore have to pay attention on this. A second about, I have a plan create 1,000 jobs in West Seattle, include Seattle. But land must be used wisely. Against destroy environment. Forest only use land not available for agriculture.
Thank you.
The fact is, growth is going to happen. I mean, at one point, Smith Tower was the tallest building west of the Mississippi. I've seen what 35th Avenue looked like in 1910. This is not going to be the same thing as time goes on, but development and growth, they have to be responsible, they have to be intelligent, and they have to be done with the interaction with the communities that growth's happening. I know I feel right now as a West Seattle resident that downtown government in Seattle has told us that because we have urban hubs and urban villages in West Seattle, we're going to get density increases and we're going to get growth. But the fact is, I think it needs to be much more in concert with what do we want to see as a community. We can keep our flavor, we can keep our neighborhood the way we want, as long as it's done intelligently. And the truth is, developers too easily can have an entire weekend retreat with people who are making decisions, whereas as people in the community, we get it 2 minutes at a time to say everything we think. That needs to change, and that's why we need a voice from West Seattle talking about how West Seattle wants to grow.
Thank you.
I'll grab a hold of what Phil was just talking about and say that I think what we can do, we have very strong neighborhood councils. I do not think it's an us versus them for the developers all the time. I support linkage fees and impact fees, and I'm excited to see that implementation study come back. And I believe it's important that we get those developers at our tables with our communities, talking about what we want to see, because frankly, they'll be more successful if our neighborhoods are more successful. So I feel that it's a cooperative moving forward that we really need to work on from all of those angles.
Thank you.
I wouldn't be running and taking up your time this morning if the city had done a decent job of handling the development issue. I've worked in this field for 29 years. I'm proud to say that I've built affordable housing, 3,000 units of it, without public subsidy. I've built public schools that allow kids to have a proper education. We're doing everything the wrong way here, including the fact that this community is not listened to when these projects are brought forth. The process is broken, and the fact that after all this time, after 25 years, ladies and gentlemen, we've had the right to impose impact fees for 25 years, and the city hasn't gotten around to doing it. I'm glad that some steps are being taken, going forward now to do that, but it's a little late. In the question of affordable housing, having been on that side of the table for a long time, let me just tell you, the notion that we can't have affordable housing and still have developers pay their own way isn't true. They're not telling you the truth. And I know that because I've been on that side of the table.
Thank you.
So there's a conservation district that Tom Rasmussen has been working on. I don't know if you noticed up in the Pike Pine corridor where they're saving some of the facades from the buildings. I'm interested in that. I think that's a really interesting thing to do for neighborhoods. Affordability means you build more housing. We need more housing to keep it affordable. When you limit the stock of housing, you push the prices up. So if we want to keep this area affordable, we do need to build more buildings. It can be reasonable development. It doesn't have to be canyons of 6- and 10-story buildings. It can be the things that are going on in the Westwood area where we have townhomes and buildings that are for families. That is what I think we need to be doing to preserve the character and affordability of West Seattle.
Thank you.
I'm going to keep my answer short because I agree with most of my colleagues up here. I think the important part is having a diversity of stock as we develop. We can't create just apartments. We can't create just studios. We need to make sure that we're creating housing that's accessible and affordable for the families that grew up here in West Seattle. We've got an interesting culture shift coming in with the development from Amazon, and while I appreciate the economic engine that's created for South Lake Union, there's some cultural challenges that I think that they have within that industry that are starting to leak into our neighborhoods that we need to address. And additionally, we've got a lot of single folks moving in, and as we all grow up and start families, we need to make sure that those families have somewhere to grow into moving forward.
Thank you.
So a couple of things. The transit-oriented development that DPD has put forth does not work, so we need to push back on that and make sure that we actually have the transportation to go with the development. The Neighborhood Conservation District is a great idea. We've been working here in the Alaska Junction to try and define what it is about California Avenue that makes sense, and one way to do that is to work with developers directly. We have some really good experience in the Morgan Junction area where we have worked with developers and locals to develop new townhomes in areas that was a zone-specific request, and the entire process showed that neighbors can accept development, working with the developer. So part of it is bringing everybody to the same table, as Shannon indicated. Part of it is making sure that DPD actually looks at what we're doing before they impose rules, because we don't have the transportation to support the number of people who live here. And part of it is to work with developers on actually the look and feel of the structure itself.
Thank you. All right, now we are going to move back into our second lightning round, so I will give you a second to get your cards ready again and remind you we have incredibly lovely people in the back of the room who would like to see your answers too, so make sure to hold them high. All right, so the first question for this lightning round is, do you support the current body camera initiative for the Seattle Police Department? Okay. Next question. Would you support not allowing the Seattle Police Department officers to carry firearms or their sidearm while doing patrols in West Seattle?
Yes.
Okay.
Walking patrol.
Would you support not allowing the Seattle Police Department to not carry their firearms while walking the patrol?
Double negative. What's the question?
Weaponless police officers?
Yes,
Is that the question?
weaponless police officers walking patrol in West Seattle. We'll start with Phil for the waffle, 15 seconds.
I think putting police officers out there without firearms is completely up to whether or not they feel comfortable in doing it, and if they do, then I could see supporting it.
Chaz, you also waffle?
Yes, and I agree with Phil. I think the safety of the officer involved ought to be part of the component, but I would be thoroughly in favor of using rubber bullets to begin with immediately.
The next question, and rereading, and I'm saying there is a double negative. Do you support construction of a third stadium in Soto? Brianna, you waffled, 15 seconds.
We gotta be thoughtful about what that's gonna do to the actual corridor, but like livable wage jobs in the construction and the maintenance of a stadium, yes.
Chaz, you waffled?
I did, because we have not seen the mitigation for the impact that will have on traffic. We already have huge traffic from Safeco and CenturyLink on bus and transit travel. Why would we want to go further unless we have the answers first?
Shannon, you also?
Yeah, I support the current MOU that's before the county and the city, but I'm understanding that these things could change given the NBA versus the NHL, so I'd want to see what that looked like.
Okay, thank you. The next question, are you capable of communicating with voters in a language other than English? Thank you. Next question. Do you support the Seattle Police Department using the King County Sheriff's Department's Guardian 1 helicopter in West Seattle? Do you support the use of Guardian 1, that police helicopter in West Seattle?
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then last question in our lightning round. Recently, efforts were made to allow access to community pools for dog owners the day before cleaning is done. Would you work to help make this a permanent activity?
Could you repeat the question?
So recently, the Southwest Houston family, as part of its cleaning process, is allowing dog owners access to the pool so that their dogs can swim on the days before cleaning happens.
Pool is getting empty the next day.
So
It's completely emptied the next day. It's the day before the cleaning takes
I
place.
hate to ask, could you just state that one more time?
Okay. This is actually something that happens a lot in King County, so I would definitely recommend you all looking into this. Basically, the simple language is, before a community pool is cleaned, you allow pet owners, dog owners to use that pool. And then the next day, the pool is drained and replenished with water.
But isn't the question if we'd work to keep that going?
Yes, would you work to encourage that? Brianna, would you like to explain
I'm
that?
just sure there might be one other priority I might have, to be terribly honest with you.
Bill?
I would basically say if in general people weren't too grossed out by it and thought it was positive, then I could support it, but not knowing what everybody thinks.
Thank you. That was a community submitted question, by the way.
And we rewrote it 4 times and it still didn't come out. No pun intended. So this is the last question before we go to, we will introduce you all to candidating. So this is a human services question. So inside District 1, is a neighborhood with the lowest life expectancy in the city. Name this neighborhood, and if elected, what will you do to try and correct this situation? And we'll start with Lisa. And it's a one minute response.
Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to guess. I'm gonna say South Park, and I'm thinking South Park because of the issues with the Duwamish, the river, and the fact that there is a remediation plan that takes a couple good steps, but needs to be beefed up. I think the council did a good job of improving on that remediation plan. But the fact of the matter is there are far too many people who are suffering from diseases, cancer, because of the proximity to the river.
I'm not sure about it, but I have to study about it and do my best, not only for law who suffer, for all citizens of Seattle. West Seattle is Seattle.
I would also have to be making a guess. I'm fairly sure, though, that it is South Park. And actually, I know the air quality issues are even worse than the river quality. Obviously, there's industry down there. And the biggest thing to do about that is looking about cleaning up those industries, speeding up the Duwamish cleanup, looking at the air pollution regulations, and helping that neighborhood work. Because I know the people down there have some very good ideas on how they could fix the air quality and just the general livability of their community so there aren't the toxins and the issues that they have right now.
I also presume it's the area along the Duwamish corridor there, and I would say I'm happy about the record of decision from EPA that it's pretty good, and I look forward to making it more robust even. And I would also say that one of the proudest things that we've worked on at the King County Council with Joe as budget chair is that we were able to restore some of our public health service clinics. And it's very important for these families in these neighborhoods to have a place to go where they can get preventative care and maternity support services and nurse-family partnership type care. And I certainly will encourage that as a city council member.
As the Duwamish is a Superfund site, I have to echo my colleague's assumption about the answer to the first part of the question. To the second part of the question, kind of back to the point I made before, our city budget is a balancing act. We're trying to make choices about the limited resources that we have. And I think the council made some positive changes to the mayor's budget, but the amount of money involved was fairly modest. We could be doing, ladies and gentlemen, is collecting more money to improve the overall supply of funds for the city. We're not doing it. For example, Councilman Burgess talked about the pre-K program, a fantastic idea. You know, one of the other things that's also good is smaller class sizes. But what do we have here? We're not collecting the money that we could from the impact of projects, and what it's causing is more crowded classrooms and also higher assessments and levies on us. So it's a lose-lose deal as is right now. We can do more with human services if we collect monies in other locations.
Hi, actually it's Delridge. Delridge is the neighborhood that has this problem. And it's because they don't have any access to food. There are no grocery stores on Delridge in that corridor. They have a Quickie Mart that sometimes has fresh fruits and vegetables, but they don't. The Delridge Co-op Grocery is starting up in the DEST building, and they are trying to bring fresh food to Delridge. Also, walkability of Delridge, there really isn't any. So having things along Delridge that people can get to, bike lanes so that people can bike to and from where they need to go. Those are the things that we need to do and that we can do, and I would support getting a grocery store, especially getting the co-op there. That is a group of people who have been working for 5 years to bring this grocery store, and they are looking for members. And it's $100 to join, so I encourage that everyone does that.
So Delridge is a food desert, and the children of South Park have 3 to 4 times the rate of asthma than the national average. Children can't breathe in South Park, and kids can't eat. on Delridge. This is no small problem. In addition to accessibility for these communities in terms of walkability and access to bikes and healthy foods, my understanding is the city has tried to incentivize a grocery store to go into the Delridge corridor and on the eastern side of 35th where the desert lives, and they just haven't found any takers. All the viability studies say that there isn't a community there that needs food, apparently. I'd imagine most of the folks that live there would disagree around dinner time. But, I mean, we can be a little bit more thoughtful about the way we use our resources, particularly in South Park, is close to my heart. I lived there for a year, and that is the warmest community I've seen in Seattle. And they live under a flight path, and they've had their access cut off, and the bridge is back now, and I'm a little bit concerned about what the industry of trucks going back through there will do to the air quality.
So both Delridge and South Park have serious health problems. And one of the things that the city could do to help Delridge is we provide Race and Social Justice Initiative funding for other programs. Why are we not providing Race and Social Justice Initiative funding for the Delridge grocery? That would be one way that the city could bootstrap a local program run by local folks. So in addition to that, I would actually push for a much stronger pushback against the EPA record of decision, because I think we need to remove more of the toxic material from the river before we cover it up. The goal would be ultimately to have folks be able to fish from the river, and we can't do that right now. So Delridge and South Park both have serious problems. They need approaching from different angles, but clearly the city could go forwards right now and help fund the Delridge grocery.
I'm going with South Delridge. So I think that for all the obvious reasons, I mean, if there's a problem with the air quality, which obviously there is, if there's a problem with the community not having access to grocery stores, this isn't a new problem. This has been going on since I've lived here. Why hasn't anything been done about it? It takes a district to have that happen. I think that's a correct answer. It should have happened a long time ago. Obviously, because the South Park area, the Duwamish is a Superfund site, there's going to be funds available to address those problems. The grocery store, I mean, quite frankly, there should be like 3 of them over there. I mean, I don't get it. So from my standpoint, I'm all for a grocery store and I'm all for cleaning it up, but South Delridge is my answer.
So Dorsal, what's the correct answer?
North Delridge.
Oh, darn it! North, are you sure?
I can provide the studies for any of the candidates who would like to see it. North Delridge.
Highest rate of suicide as well.
Yeah.
And what is the life expectancy? 10 years left?
Yeah,
60s.
yeah, it's in the 60s. It's in the 60s.
The mid-60s.
Come on over to my neighborhood and visit anytime. So, thank you to the candidates, because we're running a little early. So I'm going to take a little moment of privilege here, and we're going to slip in one more question. For those who don't know, there is a meeting, a public meeting happening right now as we're here. Feel a little bad, but we had this planning underway for this before then. So we're going to slip a question, and I know it's a big question, but we're literally going to give you 30 seconds to answer. So this is how we make sure you can think on your feet. What plan do you have for the city's owned Myers wetland, which is approximately 32 acres? And if you don't know what the Myers wetland is, that'll tell us a little something about how well equipped you are here as well. Sorry, Edmund Restaurant, who are we up to?
Mr. Gruberman.
All right, so.
I'm not
start
sure,
with
I don't know about it, I have to study about it.
Paul. All right, fair enough.
I mean, my only opinion is that it's something that does need to be protected. I don't actually have any specific ideas with respect to it at this point.
I would also agree with it being protected. I understand there's some concerns about that we're having trouble having maintenance in some of our other parks as it is, and this is already an area where there's some concerns about gathering, and so I'm interested in studying it more. I know Lois turned it down.
I've been in a career of preserving wetlands and expanding them throughout my work in land use. I certainly support protecting the wetlands.
I'm very familiar with this area, and the protection of our wetlands is really important to me. It's something that I'm doing with the Rocks Hill Bog, which is also the headwaters of the Longfellow Creek. Once this land is gone, it's gone. We can't bring it back. So if we start developing this stuff, we can't just knock it down and then bring the wetlands back. So I am definitely for preserving the wetlands.
I'm not even going to try to punt. Yeah, I just got caught off guard, and now I need to learn a new thing.
We like honesty.
No clock? Oh, 30 seconds, okay. Yes, absolutely preservation, and the reason being that every time we put something else toxic in any watershed, we pollute the stream, we pollute the sound, we destroy orcas, we go down a path which is not a good path. And so to preserve wetlands is actually very important. This is in an area where there's not been very much preservation. So we can start. It's a large developable plot. The city has tried to do other things with it, including some bad things. So thank goodness we stopped that. But yes, absolute preservation.
I'm for preserving any wetland. As Amanda said, it only happens once, you can't bring it back, so absolutely.
So this site is, in order to preserve it, the city has to actually look at not selling it. It's currently looking at selling it to a private entity, and so we need to re-examine the property disposition requirements for the city and make sure that they are properly considering the goals for the neighborhood to do things like preserve open space.
I also for protect environments and I for protect what people like, it's all.
All right. Let's give another round of applause to our District 1 City Council candidate.